What's up everybody, I'm ChaoticMeatball and welcome back to another Pokemon Challenge video. Today, I decided to have a little bit of fun with this one, so I decided to go after Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green with only in-game traded Pokemon. I decided I'd choose Leaf Green for this time because I don't tend to play Leaf Green that much. There's 9 Pokemon here that we're allowed to use, those being Mr. Mime, Nidoran Male, Nidorino, Lickitung, Jynx, Farfetch'd, Electrode, Tangela, Seal, and their evolutions, of course. Fire Red gets the Nidoran female line, but I think we've got a solid lineup here. It's interesting that I have the capability of using 2 Nidokings if I'd like, but we'll see what I do near the end of the game. I see myself using Mr. Mime, the Nidokings, Jynx, Farfetch'd, and Electrode, though that may change with any struggles that may occur. First of all though, let me explain the rules. In battle, I can't use anything that isn't an in-game trade Pokemon, or being used for an in-game trade later on. Those latter Pokemon can't be used to fight important battles or gym leaders unless I have no access to trades, such as with the first gym. However, they can grind on regular trainers and wild Pokemon until we reach the area that we're able to trade for them. Second, no items in battle. Held items are allowed, and healing outside of battle are allowed, but no healing items in battle. Overall, I don't see this challenge being too hard, and I don't think I'll need to be over level 60 to defeat the champion. So, let's get right into it. I named my character Chaotic, and my rival Harry, because I legit don't know anyone named Harry, so that was the first thing that came from my head into the game. I used Bulbasaur through the rival battle, and mapped out my trades in order. These being Nidoran Female for Nidoran Male in the Underground Path, Spearow for Farfetch'd in Vermilion City, Abra for Mr. Mime on Route 2, Poliwhirl for Jynx in Cerulean City, Slowbro for Lickitung on Route 18, and Raichu for Electrode, Venonat for Tangela, and Ponyta for Seal in the Pokemon Lab on Cinnabar Island, as those are my choices. My first step was grabbing Spearow from Route 22 and grinding it up throughout the Viridian Forest, catching a Pikachu for a later trade. Unlike Gen 1, I'm unable to get a female Nidoran until Route 3, and there's no trades until past the first badge, so I have to take on Brock with my single Spearow. This is a major pain in the bum, but I got an attempt after Geodude decided to just spam Defense Curl. I used Fury Attack and got lucky enough to take it down in several hits, leaving just Onix. My best line of defense was using a bunch of Growl and Leer so that I could maximize my damage and minimize his. I managed to get off enough Growls and Leers, him missing a ton of Rock Tombs, and me nailing enough Fury Attacks to net me the win at level 17. Definitely a low level to beat him though. I didn't expect to beat him until I was nearly level 25 for sure. After grabbing the female Nidoran, I ran through Mount Moon and into Cerulean City. Unfortunately though, I'm unable to go south yet for my first trade, so I ran through everything on routes 24 and 25, including my rival grabbing an Abra for a later trade, getting the SS ticket and moving onward. After this, Route 5 opens up, so I went south and into the Underground Path, trading my female for a male Nidoran. Unfortunately, this is where the biggest difficulty of this challenge comes in, and that's disobedience. I skipped over all of the trainers on Route 6 so that I could get into Vermilion City, except I had to battle one, which wasn't too bad. So I made my way in and traded my Spearow for Farfetch'd, so the challenge can really truly begin. I can't progress anywhere without disobedient Pokemon, so I leveled Nidoran once to get a Nidorino, and used Moonstone to get Nidoking, and even with the added ground type and a weakness to water, I should be able to run through Misty. Sure enough, the second attempt went well, as I took down her Staryu with Nidoking before going down to her Starmie, leaving Farfetch'd to pick up the scraps and allow my Obedience cap to go up to level 30. Can I just point out that I really hate the nicknames of these Pokemon, like Chiding, Mr. Nido? Oh well, that's just another part of the challenge, I guess, enduring stupidity. So, now that I have Obedience, but the bad thing is that I barely have enough levels to take advantage of it, so I have to basically be minimal about the trainers I fight. The next badge gives me no extra Obedience, but the next badge after that, the Rainbow Badge from Erika, does, getting us up to level 50 and plenty enough to take care of the rest of the gym leaders. But we still, at minimum, have to go through Surge and the Rock Tunnel first. We're also losing out on a ton of trainers on the SSN, so after beating up my rival and grabbing the HM, I ran through Diglett's Cave to get back to Route 2, trading my Abra for Mr. Mime, giving me at least a little bit of wiggle room for Obedience levels. I wish I could get a Poliwag with the old rod so that I could get Jynx over in Cerulean right now, but alas, we have to wait a little bit longer. I returned and immediately fought Lieutenant Surge, and he led with a Voltorb as I led with Mr. Mime, which I immediately switched for Nidoking. I landed a Horn Attack to get it to low health as he landed Tackle, getting poisoned by Poison Point, and finishing it off with Poison Sting and Horn Attack, KOing him and switching back for Mr. Mime. He threw up Pikachu, but I didn't switch out, so I hit Confusion as I got nailed with a Thunder Wave. Shockwave came out next, and I used another Confusion, leading to a double team from Pikachu. I managed to hit another Confusion before it could get too out of hand, leaving just Raichu. I kept Mr. Mime out, but then switched out to Nidoking for the experience, leading to a Shockwave, which I was immune to. We kept going back and forth, where Raichu continuously used Double Team, eventually allowing me to land 2 Horn Attacks, KOing Raichu and leading to the win. I made sure to continue to switch it out Mr. Mime, so that I could use it normally without switching eventually, and so that I could keep Nidoking out of the action, seeing as he got up to level 27, awfully close to that disobedience level. I'm going to try to keep him for Erika so that I can withstand attacks while I wail on them with Horn Attack. I've traveled back up to Cerulean City, going through Route 9 and taking on as little trainers as possible before landing in Rock Tunnel. By this point, I kind of know the layout and there's a few required trainers here, so I ran through those and made it over to Lavender Town. I'm free now, finally, and I'm able to go to Celadon City after avoiding all the trainers on Route 8, leading me to Erika. She leads with Victory Bell as I lead with Farfetch'd, going for 2 sand attacks before getting paralyzed. This led me to just go for Fury Attack, nailing a few critical hits before getting to legitimately 1 HP before a Hyper Potion stops me in my tracks. It managed to KO me at full health, leading me to send out Mr. Mime. I hit Confusion and confuse it, KOing it after it hit itself, getting to level 29 and learning Psybeam. I'm getting close to Disobedience, but I run through Tangela with a Psybeam, getting right to the brink of level 30, allowing me to continue unintruded, hitting Vileplume with a Psybeam, before getting nailed with a Stun Spore and a few Giga Drains before going down. I send out Nidoking as my last Pokemon, and after a few turns, Vileplume decides to just stop using Giga Drain and went for Acid, which was kinda weird, but it allowed me to pick up the win with a few Horn Attacks. That was a really weird fight due to that, but I'm glad I didn't have to rematch Erika because of Giga Drain, and because I probably would have started being disobedient due to that. This allows me to increase the restriction to level 50, which is plenty enough room to continue onward to Koga and the level 70 cap, but I don't think we'll need to get to level 70 at all. I headed on through the Rocket Hideout and decimated everyone, leading me to Giovanni. Hey there, Pops.
You're not my son. I don't even have a son.
Yeah, sure. Beating up Giovanni was pretty easy though. He led off with Onix as I led off with Nidoking, nailing a double kick for over half health before Onix used Harden. However, I crit with double kick and took it out without a scratch. Rhyhorn's up next, and another double kick comes out for nearly the KO as a second hit critted, as Rhyhorn used Stomp, getting poisoned off a Poison Point, and getting KO'd without me attacking again. Next up is Kangaskhan, and it uses Fake Out, getting a crit and flinching me before I could nail a double kick. It hits a Mega Punch before I hit one more double kick and I get knocked. Again? Really? Why the heck would you use Tail Whip? Oh well, I went after another double kick. That was too easy. Why is the AI being such a joke? After this, I grabbed the T and opened up Saffron City, running through over to Route 8 and taking out all the trainers before arriving back in Lavender Town, where I proceeded to get all of the Pokemon Tower out of the way and take on Harry, of course. Leads with a Pidgeotto as I lead with Mr. Mime and nail a Psybeam before getting hit with Sand Attack, so I moved over to Magical Leaf to negate that before being intercepted by a Quick Attack before it goes down. Next up is Gyarados, and I nailed a Psybeam for a little over half before getting hit with Thrash, missing and getting hit with Thrash twice more before going down. Thanks, Sand Attack. I sent out Nidoking and nailed a Horn Attack, KOing it with one of them. Execute came out next, and I hit 2 Poison Stings as Hypnosis misses and I KO, leading him to send out Kadabra. It goes down in one shot to a Horn Attack due to crappy defense, leading just Charmeleon. I hit a Horn Attack as he hits Growl, but I hit another one and KO him, leading to the win. I healed and ran through the Pokemon Tower with Mr. Mime, rescuing Mr. Fuji, and getting the Pokeflute. This has opened up a bunch of trades, so after running through the Fighting Dojo in Saffron City, I grabbed the bicycle and went south to Vermilion City and over to Route 11 to take out the trainers, and run through the Snorlax after waking it up, switch training my other Nidoran female I grabbed on Route 3 on the trainers, evolving it and trading it off on Route 11 for another Nidorino, which evolved into Nidoking after another Moonstone. Now that I have a pair of them, I ran through the trainers on routes 2 through 15, leading me to get the Super Rod and my second Nidoking learning Thrash, unlike how my first one was traded at too high of a level to learn it, so it may become more useful compared to my first one, before arriving in Fuchsia City. I immediately grabbed the Good Rod and headed into the Safari Zone, capturing a Poliwag and Slowpoke as well as a Venonat. I decided to take down Koga now so that I could just increase the level cap just in case I get above level 50, but I doubt it'll happen anyway. Koga leads off with Coughing as I lead with Slowpoke for training, switching out to Mr. Mime as he misses with a Toxic. I took it out in one shot with a Psybeam, switching back for Slowpoke as he threw out Muck. I switched over to Mr. Nido, and yes, I'm going to use the nicknames to distinguish between the two since I have two of them now, as Muck uses Minimize. I hit 2 Horn attacks as he reciprocates with 2 Minimizes before I start missing with stuff until I nail a double kick. I finally took it out with a Horn attack, leaving just 2 more Pokemon. He sends out another Coughing as I go for Psybeam with Mr. Mime, leaving to just his Wheezing. After another switcheroo with Slowpoke, I use Swords Dance with Farfetch'd, KOing him with a critical slash, winning me the fight. That was a fun fight, especially since I've never used a team like this. It felt more like a strategy rather than a war of attrition like my single Pokemon challenges. I grinded up Poliwag into Poliwhirl, and Slowpoke into Slowbro, allowing me to perform 2 more trades and max out my team. I traded my Poliwhirl for Jinx and Slowpoke for Lickitung, and I've gotta say, this party is pretty damn strong. I used the Sylph Company to level up the rest of the team, leading to 2 more major battles, the first of which is with Harry again, who leads off with Pidgeot as I lead with Jinx. I nail it with an Ice Punch for the KO as he sends out Gyarados, lowering my attack. Luckily that doesn't matter that much, and I hit Ice Punch for nearly half as he hits Bite. Powder Snow doesn't do enough, but it does do enough to put him in no healing range as he hits Dragon Rage. This allows me to follow up with an Ice Punch and knock him out, leading to Charizard. I managed to nail a Lovely Kiss, putting him to sleep so I can nail an Ice Punch before being put down with a Flamethrower. I sent out Nino and nailed him with a Thrash before Scary Face lowered my speed and Smokescreen lowered my accuracy, but I managed to KO him before that it could affect me. I switched out for Lickitung as he went into Execute, using Knock Off since it's super effective but it barely does anything. He puts me to sleep with Sleep Powder, and getting off a Confusion before I wake up and use Wrap, allowing for residual damage as he puts me to sleep again. Another Confusion comes out before I wake up and hit a critical Stomp, allowing Wrap's damage to finish it off. Last up is Alakazam, and he goes for Future Sight, and I land a Stomp for nearly half. He uses Reflect as I use another Stomp, as we waste a turn together and I get hit with Future Sight. Went for Knock Off, barely missing the KO, but I nailed another Stomp before I could get hit with another Future Sight, ending the fight with a win. That was definitely one of the harder battles of the game, but I managed to get through pretty well. Next up is Giovannia, and honestly, he wasn't too bad at all. He meets with Nidorino as I lead with Lickitung with low health since I was too lazy to go back and heal. I get off a Stomp before going down, allowing me to send out Nino to do some work with Thrash, KOing him after taking a Horn attack. Next up is Kangaskhan, and I switch for Mr. Mime, getting faked out before being able to use Psychic, getting hit with a massive Mega Punch before getting the KO with another Psychic. Next up is Rhyhorn, and I get one shot with Psychic as he sends out Nidoqueen as his last Pokemon, which takes massive damage from Psychic before weirdly using Double Kick, allowing me to pick up the KO with Psybeam. I have no clue why the AI keeps doing this kind of thing, but I will take it. Afterwards, I walked up to the President and told him to suck his Master Ball before going on to heal and fight Sabrina. She's a bit of a threat due to me having 2 Poison-type Nidokings on my team, but I managed to get through on my first attempt. She leads with Kadabra as I lead with Lickitung, however he's faster and gets a Calm Mind off before I use Knock Off, leading to a Reflect, which lowers the power of my Stomp. He uses a Future Sight before I get the KO with another Stomp, leading to her sending out, oddly enough, a female Mr. Mime. Weird. I hit a Stomp after a barrier, barely doing anything as I get hit with this Future Sight attack, and she keeps going for Calm Mind, KOing my Lickitung as I send out Jinx. I used Ice Punch for a good chunk of damage before she hits me and uses a Hyper Potion, allowing me to get 2 Ice Punches off uncontested before a Psybeam confuses me. She heals again as I hit myself in Confusion twice in a row, leading to another Psybeam. Jinx snaps out of confusion and hits an Ice Punch, but gets KO'd in the process. Nino is up next, and I hit 2 Thrashes, taking her down after a massive chunk being taken out of Nino's health thanks to Psybeam. Alakazam comes out next, and Nino goes down to a critical Psychic, not that it needed to be, leading to me to send out Farfetch'd. He uses Calm Mind as I go for Swords Dance, but a boosted Psychic is enough to take me down without being able to take advantage of Swords Dance. My Mr. Mime is out now, and I used Light Screen to reduce Psychic's damage, so I reciprocate and get the special defense drop, hitting another one to drop him below half as he hits another Psychic. I hit Psybeam to get him in range for a KO with Psychic, nailing one more before he goes down, leaving just Venomoth. Weirdly enough, it's a poison type, so I just nailed it with Psychic, KOing it and winning the fight. I'm surprised Koga didn't have this thing, but to be completely honest, it would have been more likely if she had a Hypno or Slowbro, but I digress. I grabbed the Psychic TM and taught it to Jinx, as well as diversifying my movesets with my other Pokemon before flying back to Pallet Town, which allowed me to surf southbound, taking out all the trainers and landing in Cinnabar Island, the home of my last 3 trades of the game. I performed 2 of them, as I grabbed a Thunderstone to evolve Pikachu into Raichu earlier, and grabbed a Venonat from the Safari Zone, allowing me to trade for Electrode and Tangela, respectively, before going off into the Pokemon Mansion. I cleared the place out, grabbing the secret key, and it's time to take on Blaine. I don't have Burn Heal for this fight, but I won't need it because I am not allowed to use them in battle. Blaine leads with Growlithe as I lead with Nino, using Dig as he misses Fire Blast, KOing him in one shot. Next up is Ponyta, and I stay in, using Dig again as he misses Fire Blast, hanging on just barely and leading to a Hyper Potion. I use Double Kick on that turn and win it a Dig, KOing him on the next turn. Next up is Rapidash as I use Dig and he misses Fire Blast yet again. Dig does a little bit more than half, so a second Dig finishes him off, leading to Arcanine. I used Dig and did around a third before getting hit with a critical Fire Blast, getting KO'd. Lickitung's out next, and I got outsped, getting nailed with a second critical Fire Blast before I sent out Farfetch'd. It also goes down to 1 Fire Blast, and I'm realizing, oh boy, I need to send something out that can actually damage this thing, so I sent out Mr. Mime, leading to a Psychic before he misses with Fire Blast, finally. A second Hyper Potion comes out, and I use Psychic for barely under half, but a second Psychic connects as he hits Bite, but he doesn't go for the Hyper Potion, leading to the KO after a third one and the win. Afterwards, I head outside and I don't go with Bill to the Sevii Islands, and I actually had no idea you could do this, since I could have sworn that the Viridian City gym was still locked if you didn't complete that bit, but it wasn't. So I just went right towards Giovanni, and after taking out all the gym trainers, it's time for the final battle with him. He leads with Rhyhorn as I lead with Nino, using Dig as he misses with a Scary Face. It lands for half as he hits a Scary Face, leading me to use another Dig, barely surviving and using another Scary Face. He goes for a Hyper Potion as I nail a Double Kick for over a third, and I yet still outspeed and hit a second Double Kick as he finally hits a third Scary Face, and lands an Earthquake for over half as I take down Rhyhorn with another Double Kick. Next out is Dugtrio, so I send out Jinx and KO it with Ice Punch. I switch back for Mr. Nito, and on the next Rhyhorn, I used Surf to KO it in one shot. Next up is Nidoqueen, and I hit it with Psychic, KOing it in one shot with Jinx. Lastly, Nidoking comes out, and again, it gets KO'd by Psychic with Jinx, basically making this battle a shutout. I really thought you were a better trainer, Giovanni. Well, there's only 2 barriers between me and the Pokemon League, my rival and the Victory Road. First up is Harry, and he has a full party now. He leads with Pidgeot as I lead with Lickitung. He uses Feather Dance as I use Shockwave, probably stunning the AI for the fact that I have an Electro-type move on a thing that has a large tongue. He uses Wing Attack as I keep going for Shockwave until he goes down. Next up is Rhyhorn, and I go for Mr. Nito and KO it with Surf. Alakazam comes out and he uses Psychic and KOs me before I can use Mega Horn, leading me to send out Farfetch'd. I went for Fly as he uses Calm Mind and misses Psychic, but the second one connects and Farfetch'd goes down. I sent out Jinx, and Alakazam used Psychic for a little under half, allowing me to take it down in 2 Ice Punches. Next up is Charizard, and oh boy, this thing runs through literally my entire team. Flamethrower to Lickitung, Critical Slash and Wing Attack to Mr. Mime, Wing Attack to Jinx, and 2 Flamethrowers to Nino before I blacked out. I decided I needed to redo my movesets for this, so I got the Ice Beam and Thunderbolt TMs from the game corner and taught a bunch of TMs to my Pokemon and refought my rival. This ends up working since I took out Charizard second, ending the fight with Fly on Alakazam. I'm glad I didn't have to grind and fight him again afterwards, especially because I didn't have access to Victory Road yet for experience. But after the Victory Road, I've tried fighting the Elite Four and I got absolutely crushed by level 50 by Lorelei, so I decided to just wipe out the trainers on the Sevi Island side quest and grind in the Victory Road to level 55. So here's the team recap. I gave Lickitung Rock Smash, Double Edge, Shockwave, and Fire Blast. Plenty of coverage and a good stab move, so it's hopefully going to come in handy, though it's only level 52 because I figure it's probably not going to. Next up is Nino, who has Thrash, Mega Horn, Dig, and Water Pulse. Not too crazy, but Dig is good stab. Thrash and Mega Horn are strong physical moves, and Water Pulse for coverage. Not bad for sure. Third up is Jinx, and it has Lovely Kiss, Psychic, Double Team, and Ice Beam. Psychic and Ice Beam for stab, Lovely Kiss for putting others to sleep, and Double Team for things I need to keep dodging to stay alive against. Particularly Charizard. Next up is Marfetch'd, who has Fly, Swords Dance, Cut, and Steel Wing, and I'd much rather have Slash than Cut, but with Swords Dance it really should matter. Mr. Mime's got Thunderbolt, Reflect, Psychic, and Light Screen, and I've never really used anything with dual screens, so I'm hoping that this pays off. Psychic is enough for stab, and Thunderbolt with its special attack will be plenty for stuff like Gyarados and Aerodactyl later on. Lastly, Mr. Nito has Surf, Blizzard, Mega Horn, and Strength. Strength is as good as Thrash, just without fatigue. Mega Horn is coverage for Psychic types, assuming I can connect, and Surf and Blizzard will hopefully be useful. I realized that I had Mega Horn on both Nidokings though, so I replaced it on Mr. Nito for Earthquake to give it some ground stab. I wish I had some Poison Stab, but I really don't have much access to anything other than Toxic, and that's not an attack, so whatever. Let's get into the battles. Lorelei led with Dugong as I nailed it with a Thunderbolt with Mr. Mime, critting and getting a KO with one shot. Next up is Lapras, which I used Thunderbolt for slightly under half as Body Slam did about a third. I used Psychic and Lapras healed with a Citrus Berry as I got hit with a second Body Slam. Luckily it didn't paralyze and Thunderbolt managed to take it out, leading to Cloyster. Thunderbolt took it out in one shot, so I leveled up and she sent out Slowbro, which managed to go down in 2 Thunderbolts, barely not taking me out with Surf. Jinx came in and I used Thunderbolt for about a third, allowing it to take Mr. Mime out so that I could just use the revive after the battle was over. I sent out Lickitung and it was put to sleep immediately rather than allowing me to hit Fire Blast. A few Ice Punches later and it goes down, leaving me to send out Mr. Nito and hitting it with an Earthquake and Defiance, taking out Lorelei. I healed in between fights, but I realized that I only had 3 Hyper Potions left, so I just left Mr. Mime and Lickitung at half health before the fight with Bruno. He leads with Onix as I lead with Farfetch'd. I used Swords Dance, getting hit with Rock Tomb and lowering my speed. Unfortunately, that meant I got hit with an Iron Tail before nailing a Steel Wing and increasing my defense. Another Iron Tail and I knocked it out with another Steel Wing. Next up is Hitmonchan, but it took me out with Sky Uppercut, so I didn't get to take advantage of Swords Dance as much as I would have liked. I sent out Jinx and we both waste a turn, allowing me to land a Psychic for the KO. Next up is Onix, and I hit it with Ice Beam, KOing it with a critical one-shot. Machamp is out next, which goes down to a single Psychic, and Hitmonlee does the same, leading to the win. Next up is Agatha, and she's not really a threat at all, because she leads with Gengar, and I nail it with Mr. Mime's Psychic, one-shotting it. Golbat, one-shot. Arbok, one-shot with a critical. Gengar, one-shot. Haunter, one-shot. I know that she's supposed to be a Ghost-type trainer, but boy, she should have just been branded as a Poison-type trainer, being allowed to use stuff like Vileplume and Venomoth rather than 3 Pokemon in the Ghastly line. Oh well. Lastly, there's Lance, who leads with Gyarados. I hit it with Thunderbolt with Mr. Mime and KO'd it in one shot, leading to Aerodactyl. It hits Hyper Beam and KOs Mr. Mime, leading to me to send out Jinx and taking it out with Ice Beam. Next up is Dragonite, which goes down to a single Ice Beam, same as his last 2 Dragonairs, leading to the win, leaving just my rival. I healed up fully, leading into the final battle. He leads with Pidgeot as I go for Mr. Mime, going for Thunderbolt and doing a bit over half as he lands an Aerial Ace. A second Thunderbolt takes him down, but I probably can't live another hit. Gyarados comes out next and intimidates Mr. Mime, but Thunderbolt does massive damage before it takes Mr. Mime down with Thrash, locking him in and unable to heal, so I send in Jinx, Ice Beaming him to death. I swap for Mr. Nito as he sends in Rhydon, allowing me to nail it with Earthquake for over half as he one-shots me with Earthquake. I knew I should have used Surf. However, Jinx takes it down with Ice Beam, leading to Charizard. I had to go for the Lovely Kiss strat, so after Charizard missed with Fire Blast, I used Lovely Kiss and landed it, allowing me to get a few double teams off before it wakes up and continues to miss, allowing me to put it back to sleep and KO it in an Ice Beam and a critical Psychic. Next is Alakazam, which gets a Lovely Kiss after setting up a Future Sight, allowing me to go for Psychic and lower its special defense. This allows me to just go for Ice Beam, KOing it and leading to his last Pokemon, Exeggutor. I luckily had one last power point for Ice Beam in my repertoire, so after Future Sight failed, I nailed it, one-shotting it and winning the Pokemon League, becoming the champion. Gotta say, that was a fun battle, and there was a ton of fun battles in this run. I normally don't use any of these Pokemon, but I kind of understand why. Farfetch'd and Lickitung were only situationally useful, but Mr. Mime and Jinx really showed me that Psychic types in Gen 1 can be quite the advantage, even in the remakes. However, the MVPs were definitely my pair of Nidokings. They put in the most work throughout the game, and I admit that I could have probably used one of them and won the game. But hey, I'd rather see how low a level that I could win, and managed to do it lower than level 60, so I'm pretty satisfied. However, we're not done yet. There's still a few sets of remakes that we can do this challenge in, but I'll hold off for a bit. Next time, we'll be doing Professor Oak's challenge in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. It's about time I finish off Generation 3 and include it in my category with Gen 1 and 6 as completely finished. And yes, this will be up on Sunday. I'm actually probably editing it while you're watching this, assuming you're here in the few first days. The few first days of upload. Wow, Am I blind? Am I deaf? I don't know. Anyway, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, like this video, leave a comment, do all the YouTube algorithm things if you like what I do, and suggest what challenges you want to see from me in the future. I don't care what game it is, unless it's Sword and Shield. I still don't have a capture card for it right now. But, whatever. I'm open to new ideas, even ROM hacks and fan game challenges. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys on Sunday.